I think too many fighters try to put on this persona of like trying to make money and this is going to be my image. And, I guess that's good, and that has its place. But, I mean, I'm more interested in finding out who people really are. When, BJ Penn talks, I like the fact that BJ doesn't seem like he's ever full of shit. That's really his personality. Matt Hughes, that's his personality. When I see other fighters now that are trying to kind of follow this, I know their manager's talking to them like, man, you got to hype the fight, talk trash, do this. So I don't really get to know who you are as a fighter till after the fight. Well, that's not interesting to me. I want to find out who you are. What do you really think about the situation? What do you really think about the other guy?
Yeah.
Be honest. I think honesty is more interesting.
To go back to the guy for a second, do you think Lesnar is phony at all? Because you know what, I don't. He seems like a nasty SOB at times where he'll snap on people. I just think that's the way he is.
Yeah, and I think that if anything, it's not so much that he puts on a persona. I just think he exaggerates certain parts of his personality.
Yeah.
I think that he does have that cockiness and swagger about him, and he knows that gets under people's skin, and so he just personifies it. And I've done that before in the past with certain parts of my personality. I'm not an actor, so I can't just create an emotion.
Like exploding on a reality show when you lose a soccer competition? How did you think that came off?
What's that?
How did you think that came off? I don't think Dave saw it, but you do this soccer competition, and then you freaking totally flip out afterwards about being a better athlete at just about everything else.
That went a little bit of a rant. But that was me being honest.
I knew it was.
I was upset. Well, I just kind of felt gypped. We're sitting there. I'm walking out to the field, and here I'm looking forward to competing against Nogueira, and I'm hoping that we pick a pretty neutral sport. I probably would have been just as upset if they had picked football.
Yeah.
If we say, okay, you guys are going to cover each other, we got the quarterback from NLV's going to throw you guys passes. I'm like, guys, I was a really good football player in high school. This is not going to be fair. He's probably doesn't know what a football looks like. And then also when I walk out there and I see soccer, I'm like, okay, this is just as retarded. And I'm like, oh, Nogueira goes, well, I'm not very good at it. I've never played. I'm like, dude, you realize that that's a weird statement you're making, right? I am not very good at tennis. You want to know how I know? I've played it before. I suck at basketball. I've played it before. Badminton, I have no idea. If you ask me if I'm good or bad at it, no clue. Want to know why? Never, ever played badminton. I've never held a badminton in my hand, never hit a birdie over a net in my life. For Nogueira to say that, I'm sure he didn't play soccer, on a league team, he probably didn't do it, and get off work to go run down to the beach and go play soccer in between practices. Okay, but for him saying that he grew up in Brazil and he hadn't kicked a soccer ball around, it's a little hard for me to believe, just... I know Dana tried to cover it by the baseball statement. Well, I grew up in America. I didn't play baseball. You mean you grew up in America, you've never played catch? You know what I mean? And baseball's a little bit more dying down. I relate that more with basketball. Everybody here, has any American not touched a basketball in his life? Can you find an American that has not?
I don't believe the baseball thing with Dana, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the Dana, come on.
He had to play at least a year of Little League and just sucked.
Yeah, but
you tell him that. Yeah. I'll tell him. I don't care. Whatever.
But I mean, it's like basketball in the States.
Right.
Basketball is an extremely popular sport.
Yeah.
I've played basketball. Am I any good at it? Hell no. I hope to God I never have to compete in that and make money because my family would starve. So that's why I was, and then, it didn't help listening to Kingsbury and all those guys do the whole goal thing, and I'm sitting there watching these guys, and I'm like, you haven't even won a fight yet, dude.
And you're mocking on me and disrespecting me.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Let's have a little level of respect here. Let's, chill out. I mean, why don't you win a fight in the UFC and you can taunt me all you want? And then
see, but the reason that's cool is it's genuine because normal guys do that. We do that at the radio station where we compete and we flip out and we act. We lose it. I'm going to say act like a baby. So don't punch me. But believe me, right?
Yeah.
You and I,
Oh no, I got
we lose. I'm sure you've heard a lot worse than that.
As soon as I watched the things where I said, and obviously I was making statements. I was angry at the time of interviewing me. You caught me at a pissed off moment. That's me mad. I mean, it wasn't that bad, And I'm sitting there watching the show. It's funny. I'm like cringing. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna come off really bad.
I thought it was funny. All right, let's finish on this. Because we're talking about being real and the whole reality show thing. You've been very outspoken on Junie Browning.
Right.
And now he's come out afterwards, and I think a little bit of it's lying. He's saying, he went in there, he faked most of it. I don't think he faked all of it. No. I think he's got problems. Does anything change with the fact that, he beat Kaplan, he showed that he was multi-skilled, or is it just kind of this whole thing where, he's got to get his life in order, and his conduct is kind of embarrassing the whole lifestyle of mixed martial arts, and he needs to show for a couple of years that he's going to be straight?
I agree a lot with what you're saying. What I think the bottom line is, one, I never really had a problem with Junie. I felt bad for him. He was a kid that was extremely talented. Obviously, I picked the guy first on my team. I saw a lot of talent there that he showcased against Kaplan in the finale on December 13th. My problem with him was with his personal life. And again, I wasn't really ever mad at him per se, but when I watched the show and it got so much airtime, I kind of got mad at how it got displayed, because really, you got Efren and Philippe who go undefeated during the whole season. Now, the producers of the show know the outcome of the fight, who's going to be in the finals. Who got all the airtime? Junie did.
Yep.
His behavior and all the things. So to me, it was like, I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like going, wow, man, you're showing people that to get on the reality show, it's not about winning fights. Make sure you dye your hair a weird color, have a gimmick, start crying and drinking and throwing stuff around, and this is what it's like to be a martial artist. And now, because it's on Spike TV, which is cable, and people aren't buying pay-per-views, I'm sitting there going, wow, if I was a father or a mom, and I'm sitting there going, oh, son, you want me to take you down to the local gym and train MMA? Cool, well, let's watch the show. Let me see what other mixed martial artists are like. I did that with my own son. My oldest, big into skateboarding, right? And I think
and say how old your son is.
He's 16.
He's not 8 years old.
No, he's a 16-year-old kid. And, about 4 years ago, he got, to where he was even sponsored by one of the local skate shops. And my skateboarding experience was Tony Hawk. I've never skateboarded. It looked kind of funny being 260 pounds flying around on a skateboard. So I thought, oh, this is a good thing. Well, I went down and hung out at the skate park, and I'm watching him. And some of the other kids that he hung out with, they're all smoking cigarettes. They're all sitting there talking about trash. I didn't like their lifestyle. So I had no problem with the sport of skating, but I saw the lifestyle, and as a parent, I saw that my son, at first I was like, well, it's not a big deal. They're just skating together. He's not going to act like those guys. But guess what? All of a sudden his clothes started to dress like him. I heard words coming out of his mouth. This is the words I heard them say. So now as a parent, if I'm doing the same thing, watching MMA, and I see Junie Browning, and I see all them destroying the house, I'm like, wow, these are fighters, son? No, you're not going to go down to the gym and train and hang out with those guys. That was my problem with it. And then with Junie in the end, did I think that his comments after the fight were apologetic and honest? To a point, yeah, I do think so, because I don't think he would have fought as well as he did in the finale December 13th if he hadn't changed portions of his life around.
Right.
That's the great thing about MMA. I could sit here and tell you that I'm not drinking, smoking, partying, eating properly, and all of a sudden, Saturday rolls around and I gas in 1 minute. You're like, well, we can see you were lying. You know what I mean? There is no lying in a cage. Yeah. There's pure honesty in there. So the fact that he went out there and kept his composure and fought so well against Kaplan, to me, that proves he didn't have to say anything afterwards. I mean, it was nice that he said something, right. But if he would have fought poorly and apologized, I'd have been like, yeah, whatever. But the fact that he fought so well, to me, shows that now that he's with Sean Tompkins and whoever's helping him out in his life, that it is on a better path. Because if he had been drinking and partying and going crazy, I don't think he could have performed to that level. Because when he came into the house with his first fight, he performed at a high level. Then in the house, he has all these emotional problems. He fought poorly. See how it is? Yeah. There's no lying. There's no hiding from it. You live an unclean life outside the cage. You could get lucky every now and then and catch someone, but most likely you're going to perform like garbage on the fight.
Let's finish on this. In a way, I think it was counterproductive to what they want, which is to develop stars, because you didn't feature Bader, barely featured Vinny. The two kids at 55, Nover and Escudero, barely, you don't know anything about them, and you're almost starting from scratch when you're trying to intro these guys. I mean, I've had media guys go, there were no prospects on that show.
Yeah, and there were so many prospects. That's the thing that really hurt me. I think it was really handled poorly. I think they could have done a better job. I mean, I got to hang out. I mean, Efren's a really cool guy. He's a warrior. Like, I've hung out with him a couple times at the house. I really liked him. And Philippe, he's a really interesting person. I mean, the guy's a nurse, a registered nurse. I remember going there in the house, he's sitting there fixing food. Hey, Frank, you want me to fix you something? The guy could cook. He could do this. I'm sitting there going, I'm sitting there, like, wow, these are some pretty interesting individuals. But because, just like I always said before, everybody goes, oh, Frank, you came off kind of like a dick a little bit. I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm in the locker room and this is what happens. I sit there and I look at my fighter and I go, okay, bro. And I'm big into Zen. That's my faith. That's my religion, I say, okay, clear your mind. Your mind has to be like a mirror. You need to focus in on the moment. Don't let thoughts of failure or any thoughts of any success or anything happen before or after. You stay in the moment. You can't control the outcome of a fight. You can only control yourself. You go in there, you start to fight. The minute you see your openings, you take advantage of your opportunities. You don't sit there and hesitate. And once you have your opponent on his heels and you have him backstepping or you have his head down, you increase the pressure and you go through. And you go in there with that killer instinct. But the minute you see his arm, you take it and you break it. And that's the kind of motivation you have. But guess what? That whole statement I just said, you know what they aired? You go in there, you grab his arm, and you break it. Well, of course I look like a dick. I think I'm a dick, too, if that's all that came out of my mouth. But it's like, well, there was like 30 seconds of some pretty interesting shit before that, that that I think pertains more to fighting than the last part.
Yeah.
I just happen to, I'm in a locker room. I'm talking in a locker room. Come on, guys. If we were to go right now, on Sunday and walk in the locker room and hear what Ray Lewis had to say, I'm sure that most people would be covering their kids' ears like going, don't hear that. You're going to hit the guy so hard the snot bubbles are going to. And I'm being just nice about probably the comments that are coming out. Come on.
Good deal. We could keep going, but we're going to let you go at some point.
We're actually only going to air the sensational parts of this.
Yeah, I know. They'll sit there and go, I said break his arm. That's all you're going to hear. See, I am a dick.
You curse 6 times, or that's all we're going to, it's going to be chopped down. It's just essentially mini Dana White.
Yeah, right?
All right, Frank. Hey, we appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you.